over the North Sea. 9:40 hours, 11 January 1944. A Messerschmitt Bf 109 G6, its engine screaming a high-pitched whine, closed on a straggling formation of American heavy bombers. The stakes were immediate and absolute. For the fighter pilot, a confirmed kill meant accolades and a step closer to the coveted Knight's Cross. For the bomber crew, it was a fight for survival, a desperate gamble against the unforgiving calculus of aerial combat. One particular B-17G, already trailing smoke from its inboard port engine, presented a vulnerable target, its formation discipline broken, making it an easier mark for the experienced German pilot. Major Erich Hartmann, Staffelkapitän of 7/JG-52, observed the American bomber. He had seen many such aircraft fall, their massive frames disintegrating under concentrated cannon fire, their crews abandoning ship or perishing in the inferno. His initial assessment, based on countless encounters, was that the B-17, while robust, was ultimately a brick, a slow, cumbersome target that once damaged rapidly became a coffin. This particular bomber, however, defied immediate categorization. Its port wing from the engine nacelle outward was a mangled ruin, the fabric torn, spars twisted, and the aileron visibly shredded, yet it held together. The damage report, later corroborated by photographic intelligence, indicated a direct hit from a 30mm cannon shell, likely from an earlier pass by another fighter. Such a strike typically initiated a catastrophic structural failure in the wing, leading to an uncontrolled spin or a complete separation. Yet, the B-17, designated Ye Old Pub by its crew, maintained a semblance of controlled flight, albeit with a pronounced list and a reduced airspeed. Its four Wright R-1820-97 Cyclone engines, each rated at 1,200 horsepower, now struggled, with one silent and another sputtering intermittently, forcing the remaining two to overcompensate. The design philosophy of the B-17, with its semi-monocoque fuselage and multi-spar wing construction, emphasized distributed strength. Unlike some contemporary designs that relied on a single, massive main spar, the Flying Fortress incorporated multiple, smaller spars and stringers, creating a redundant structure. This meant that even significant damage to one section did not necessarily lead to total failure, a principle often overlooked by fighter pilots accustomed to the more fragile, lightweight construction of their own aircraft. The strategic implication of such resilience was profound. It meant that even a heavily damaged bomber could return to base, carrying its crew and vital intelligence, denying the Luftwaffe a definitive kill and demoralizing the interceptors. Hartmann, momentarily perplexed by the bomber's persistence, circled, his finger hovering over the firing button, a new, unsettling respect beginning to form. The B-17, Ye Old Pub, a flying fortress of the 379th Bomb Group, had completed its bomb run over Bremen, a crucial port city and industrial center. Its target, the Focke-Wulf aircraft factory, had absorbed its payload of high explosives, but not without consequence. Flak, the relentless German anti-aircraft artillery, had torn through the bomber's fuselage, disabling the No. 2 engine and shattering its plexiglass nose, leaving the bombardier, Sergeant Hugh Eckenrode, severely wounded. The formation, now fragmented and vulnerable, began its arduous journey back to England. Below, Major Franz Stigler, a seasoned Luftwaffe ace with 27 confirmed kills, scrambled his Messerschmitt Bf 109 G6 from the airfield at Jever. His orders were clear: intercept and destroy. The B-17s, though damaged, still represented a potent threat, and their return provided invaluable intelligence on German defenses. Stigler, climbing rapidly, spotted the crippled bomber lagging behind its formation. The sight confirmed his ground report. A lone, struggling aircraft, an easy target. He noted the extensive damage to the B-17's tail, a gaping hole where the tail gunner's compartment should have been, and the visible trails of smoke from its compromised engine. This was not a healthy machine, As he closed the distance, Stigler observed the B-17's defensive posture. Its remaining machine guns, though sporadic, still chattered, a testament to the crew's tenacity. He recognized the distinctive olive-drab paint scheme, a common sight over the Reich. The bomber, despite its wounds, maintained a desperate, albeit slow, trajectory towards the North Sea. Stigler positioned his Bf-109 for an attack, moving to the bomber's rear. He could see the American crew through the shattered canopy, a grim tableau of exhaustion and fear. His finger hovered over the firing button. The 20mm cannon and 13mm machine guns of his fighter, ready to unleash their destructive power. This was a standard engagement, a routine kill. Yet, something in the bomber's desperate flight, its sheer refusal to succumb, gave him pause. He saw the lifeless form of the tail gunner, slumped in his position. He saw the efforts of the remaining crew to keep their dying aircraft aloft. The B-17 was not merely a machine. It was a vessel for human lives, now clinging precariously to existence. He pulled alongside the B-17's left wing, close enough to see the faces of the American crew. They stared back, wide-eyed, expecting the final, annihilating burst. Stigler, a veteran of countless brutal dogfights, understood the unspoken plea in their eyes. He signaled, pointing towards the ground, urging them to land. Surrender, he fought, was their only option. The American pilot, Lieutenant Charles Brown, shook his head, a defiant gesture. Stigler's report on this interaction would later confirm his assessment. The crew was determined to continue. He then pointed towards the coast, indicating the path to safety over the North Sea, a silent, impossible directive. Stigler, against all military protocol and personal gain, made a decision. He would escort the crippled bomber, shielding it from other German fighters, a silent guardian in the hostile skies. His BS-109, a sleek predator, now flew in an unlikely alliance with its prey. He maintained his position, his presence a deterrent to any other Luftwaffe pilot who might stumble upon the scene. The B-17, with its half-destroyed wing, continued its agonizing crawl towards the English Channel, its survival now inextricably linked to the unspoken pact with its former adversary. The journey was slow, fraught with the constant threat of discovery, a testament to an extraordinary act of wartime conscience. The B-17's starboard wing, forward of the No. 2 engine nacelle, had been struck by a burst of 20mm cannon fire. Photographic reconnaissance from escort fighters, later corroborated by ground crew inspection, detailed a jagged tear extending from the leading edge roughly 2 feet inboard of the engine, back towards the main spar. The aluminum skin, a stressed skin monocoque construction of 24 ST alclad, was peeled back in places, exposing the internal rib structure and stringers. One of the main spars, a crucial load-bearing element, showed clear evidence of a direct hit. The lower cap strip, a thick extruded aluminum section, was fractured completely, and the web, a thin sheet of aluminum alloy, was buckled and torn along a 3-foot length. This damage compromised the wing's structural integrity, particularly its ability to withstand bending moments during flight. The fuel tank within that section, a self-sealing bladder type, had been punctured, evidenced by the streaking of aviation gasoline across the wing surface, though the self-sealing compound appeared to have mitigated a catastrophic loss. Further examination revealed that the aileron control cables, routed through the damaged section, had been severed. This rendered the outboard section of the starboard aileron inoperable, severely limiting the pilot's lateral control authority. The hydraulic lines for the landing gear and flaps, also passing through the affected area, were found to be compromised, exhibiting multiple perforations and pressure loss. A post-flight hydraulic system report indicated a complete loss of fluid in the starboard circuit. The No. 2 engine itself, a Wright R-18-2097 Cyclone radial, had sustained superficial damage to its cowling from shrapnel and bullet strikes, but its operational integrity remained. However, the propeller governor for that engine was found to be unresponsive, likely due to severed control linkages, locking the propeller in a fixed pitch. This created an imbalance in thrust and increased drag, further complicating the aircraft's handling characteristics. Damage assessment records from the 303rd Bomb Group indicated that the starboard landing gear strut was twisted and bent, suggesting a hard impact or structural strain during the incident. The tire itself was deflated, likely from a separate projectile strike. The combined effect of the compromised wing structure, inoperable flight controls, and damaged landing gear presented a formidable challenge for the crew to return the aircraft to base. The total effective wing area lost, considering the structural deformation and aerodynamic inefficiencies, was estimated at approximately 15% of the starboard wing's original surface. This reduction in lift, coupled with the increased drag from the damaged components and the fixed-pitch propeller, demanded a higher angle of attack and increased engine power from the remaining 3 engines to maintain altitude and airspeed. The B-17, designed for robust performance under duress, was now operating at the extreme limits of its design envelope. The Messerschmitt, a blur of olive green and gray, executed a tight climbing turn, bringing Franz Stigler's eyes back to the bomber. He had anticipated a rapid descent, a spiraling plunge into the patchwork fields below, but the B-17, grievously wounded, maintained a stubborn, if uneven altitude. Smoke, thick and oily, streamed from the No. 2 engine, and the entire left wing, from the root out to the nacelle of the No. 1 engine, was a mangled ruin. Half its surface area, simply gone, torn away by cannon fire and the sheer violence of the air. Stigler, a pilot with 27 confirmed victories, had seen hundreds of bombers fall, their structural integrity failing under concentrated fire. This B-17, however, defied the expected physics of aerial combat. Its remaining wingtip, a jagged, exposed skeleton of spars and ripped aluminum, somehow generated enough lift to keep the colossal machine aloft. The sheer mass of the flying fortress, its internal structure designed for durability against flak, was now acting as both its greatest liability and its improbable savior, a testament to over-engineered resilience. Damage reports from downed Allied aircraft often detailed catastrophic structural failures, with wings detaching cleanly or fuselages disintegrating under sustained attack. This B-17, however, presented a unique case study in asymmetrical damage. The loss of nearly half a wing, an estimated 250 square feet of lifting surface, should have rendered controlled flight impossible. Yet the remaining wing and tail surfaces, coupled with the thrust from the 3 surviving engines, provided a precarious equilibrium. The operational ceiling for a B-17 with intact wings was typically 25,000 feet, but this crippled bomber was struggling at perhaps 12,000, a testament to the crew's desperate fight for survival. The implications for German air doctrine were immediate and unsettling. If a B-17 could absorb such punishment and still fly, the established tactics of concentrating fire on wings and engines might need re-evaluation. The strategic bombing campaign, already a brutal war of attrition, gained another layer of grim complexity if these flying bricks proved even more difficult to destroy than previously assumed. The psychological impact on German fighter pilots witnessing such defiance was not insignificant. It fostered a grudging respect for the resilience of their adversaries. Stigler, drawing closer, noted the exposed internal framework of the wing, the visible fuel lines, and the shattered control surfaces, a miracle of engineering pushed far beyond its intended limits. The B-17, now a testament to both engineering and sheer will, began its long, agonizing return. The crippled bomber, its left wing a jagged ruin, was a grotesque silhouette against the afternoon sky, a sight that would have, in earlier months of the war, signaled an imminent, fiery descent. Yet it held its altitude, albeit precariously. the remaining engines screaming in protest, their governor struggling to compensate for the asymmetric drag and lift. The pilot, Lieutenant Frank Pecker, maintained a delicate touch on the controls, every input magnified by the aircraft's instability, the airframe groaning under stresses it was never designed to endure. Damage reports, later compiled from the crew's debriefings, detailed the extent of the structural compromise. The outer third of the left wing, approximately 20 feet of duralumin skin, spars, and ribs, had been shorn away, exposing the raw, torn edges of the remaining structure. The number 1 engine, though still attached, was dead, its propeller feathered, a silent sentinel to the violence it had endured. The fuel lines to the outboard tank on that wing were severed, a fortunate circumstance that prevented a catastrophic fire, but also meant a significant reduction in available fuel. The remaining 3 engines, particularly the number 2, worked overtime, their oil temperatures steadily climbing, a ticking clock against their continued operation. The B-17, designed for robust survivability, incorporated a semi-monocoque fuselage and a cantilever wing structure, features that contributed significantly to its ability to absorb punishment. Its 4-engine configuration, a hallmark of its design philosophy, provided redundancy that single- or twin-engine aircraft lacked. This particular airframe, a B-17F model produced in early 1943, represented the pinnacle of pre-war heavy bomber design, a testament to the foresight of its designers at Boeing. Its operational ceiling of 35,000 feet and a maximum speed of 287 miles per hour were impressive. But it was its structural integrity, its ability to return from missions with gaping holes and missing sections, that truly defined its legend. The strategic implications of such resilience were profound. Each bomber that returned, no matter how damaged, represented not just a salvaged airframe, but a crew saved, their experience preserved for future missions. It reinforced the belief among Allied aircrews that the B-17 was a fortress, capable of absorbing blows and bringing them home, a psychological advantage in the brutal air war over Europe. Conversely, for the Luftwaffe, the sight of these battered giants limping back across the Channel was a demoralizing one, a tangible demonstration of their inability to decisively halt the bombing campaign. Despite their best efforts, the sheer volume of B-17s, with production rates exceeding 300 per month by mid-1943, meant that even significant losses were often absorbed, allowing the strategic bombing offensive to continue its relentless grind. The journey back to base was an exercise in sustained tension. Every gust of wind, every slight adjustment of the trim tabs was a gamble against the integrity of the remaining wing. The crew, huddled in their positions, monitored the instruments, their eyes scanning the ravaged wing for any further signs of failure. The radio crackled with intermittent reports, but the focus remained on the immediate, on the delicate balance of lift and drag, on the slow, deliberate crawl towards safety. The B-17, now a grounded hulk, was towed to a designated examination area, its mangled form a testament to the violence it had endured. Engineers and damage assessment teams swarmed the aircraft, their initial observations confirming the extraordinary nature of its return. The starboard wing, where the outer section had been torn away, presented a cross-section of torn duralumin and severed control cables, a gaping wound that defied conventional aerodynamic theory. Detailed inspection revealed the primary structural components of the remaining wing had held, specifically the main spar and its associated stringers. These elements, designed to distribute aerodynamic loads across the wing, had absorbed and redirected the immense stresses of the partial wing failure, preventing a catastrophic cascade. The internal rib structure, though distorted and crumpled in places, had maintained enough rigidity to prevent complete disintegration under the uneven lift generated. A comparison with pre-flight stress analyses indicated that the B-17's design, with its multiple load paths and robust spar construction, offered a redundancy exceeding that of contemporary twin-engine bombers. While a Heinkel HE-111 or a Dornier DO-17 would likely have succumbed to similar damage, their wing structures relied on fewer, more concentrated load-bearing members. The B-17, by contrast, incorporated a more distributed structural philosophy, a characteristic evident in its heavier, more resilient airframe. This inherent strength, a consequence of Boeing's design principles emphasizing survivability over sheer speed, had profound strategic implications. It meant that even severely damaged B-17s could often return to base, preserving not only the aircraft, but more critically, the highly trained air crews. This resilience directly impacted the attrition rates of the 8th Air Force, allowing for a higher percentage of damaged aircraft to be repaired and returned to service, a critical factor in sustaining the daylight bombing campaign. The examination concluded with a recommendation for further metallurgical analysis of the fractured components, particularly the spar caps and web. The surviving wing, a testament to unexpected endurance, offered valuable data for future aircraft design and damage tolerance studies. Reichswald Forest, early 1944. Major Hans-Joachim Jabs of Nachtjagdgeschwader 1, a pilot with a growing tally of nocturnal victories, received the operational debriefing on the recent daylight interception over Brunswick. His unit, primarily tasked with night defense, had been drawn into the chaotic daytime struggle against the encroaching bomber streams, a mission for which their heavy, radar-equipped Messerschmitt Bf-110s were ill-suited. But reports from the Jagdgeschwader 1 and Jagdgeschwader 3 pilots, whose Focke-Wulf FW-190s and Messerschmitt Bf-109s were the primary daylight interceptors, painted a grim picture of American resilience. Jabs had always considered the B-17 a lumbering target, a flying brick, as the common jibe went among his comrades, a testament to its apparent lack of maneuverability compared to the nimble German fighters. Its boxy silhouette, designed for internal volume and defensive armament rather than aerodynamic grace, reinforced this perception. Yet, the combat reports detailed repeated instances of these bricks absorbing punishment that should, by any conventional understanding of aircraft construction, have rendered them immediately unflyable. One report, specifically, cited a B-17 that had sustained damage to its starboard wing so severe that nearly half of the outer section, beyond the number 3 engine, was entirely gone. The structural integrity of an aircraft wing, particularly its main spar and skin, was paramount for lift generation and control. The B-17's wing, with its multi-spar construction and stress skin aluminum alloy panels, was designed for strength. However, the loss of such a significant portion, including aileron surfaces and potentially fuel cells, should have resulted in an immediate, uncontrollable roll and subsequent catastrophic failure. German aircraft, particularly the lighter, single-engine fighters, relied on a more delicate balance of strength to weight, often sacrificing redundant structural elements for speed and agility. A similar hit on an FW-190 wing would invariably lead to its disintegration. The implications of such durability were profound. It meant that the standard tactics of concentrated fire aimed at critical areas like engines or fuel tanks were often insufficient to guarantee a kill. A single B-17, even grievously wounded, often continued its flight, maintaining formation, or at least a stable heading, long enough to release its bombs or even return to base. This extended combat endurance translated directly into increased bomber survival rates, diminishing the effectiveness of German interceptor efforts despite the mounting losses inflicted on the bomber formations. The psychological toll on German pilots, witnessing their quarry absorb impossible damage and continue on, was significant, undermining the perceived vulnerability of the American air fleets. Jabs reflected on the persistent reports from his own night fighter crews, who, though engaging different bomber types, also noted the surprising ability of British Lancasters and Halifaxes to sustain heavy damage and still return. The B-17, however, with its daylight visibility and reputation for absorbing punishment, became the archetype of this new, unsettling reality. The flying brick was not merely a clumsy target. It was a testament to an engineering philosophy that prioritized ruggedness over elegance, a design principle that now directly challenged the efficacy of German air defense. The war in the air was not merely about speed and firepower. It was also about the sheer, stubborn refusal to fall. The incident, one among many, solidified the B-17's reputation for extraordinary resilience. Pilots and crews returned with accounts of damage that by any conventional metric should have rendered their aircraft irrecoverable. These narratives, often embellished in the retelling but rooted in stark reality, became foundational to the bomber's legend, influencing morale both within the Allied forces and among the German fighter pilots who faced them. The sheer volume of damage sustained and survived by B-17s forced a reevaluation of aircraft design principles. While the initial focus was on speed and maneuverability, the protracted air campaigns over Europe underscored the critical importance of structural integrity and redundant systems. Damage reports from countless missions demonstrated that even with significant portions of their airframe compromised, these aircraft frequently made it back to base. A testament to their robust construction, this resilience was not accidental. It was a product of design philosophy and material science. The B-17's semi-monocoque construction, utilizing multiple spars and ribs, distributed stress effectively, preventing catastrophic failure from localized damage. Its self-sealing fuel tanks, while not infallible, significantly reduced fire risk, and its multiple engines provided a crucial margin of safety, allowing continued flight even after one or two had been disabled. The psychological impact extended beyond the immediate combatants. For the German air defense, the sight of severely damaged B-17s continuing their flight, sometimes for hundreds of miles, was demoralizing. Interrogation files from captured Luftwaffe pilots frequently noted their frustration with the bomber's ability to absorb punishment, often referring to it as an unbreakable or flying fortress in their debriefings. This perception, whether entirely accurate or not, influenced tactical decisions and contributed to a sense of futility in certain engagements. The B-17's demonstrated toughness also had a profound effect on bomber doctrine. It reinforced the idea that heavy, well-defended bombers could penetrate deep into enemy territory, even without continuous fighter escort, a concept that evolved significantly as the war progressed. The ability to absorb damage meant that fewer aircraft were lost to individual hits, allowing for sustained bombing campaigns that would have been impossible with more fragile designs. Post-war analysis, drawing from thousands of combat reports and maintenance logs, confirmed the empirical observations made during the conflict. The average number of major structural repairs per B-17 returning from a deep penetration mission, according to a 1945 USAAF technical survey, stood at 3.7. This quantitative evidence underpinned the qualitative accounts of extraordinary survival, cementing the aircraft's place in aviation history. The legacy of the B-17's toughness continued to inform aircraft design for decades. Lessons learned about redundancy, structural strength, and crew protection in extreme combat environments found their way into subsequent generations of military aircraft. The image of a B-17 riddled with holes and missing major sections, still flying, became an enduring symbol of wartime perseverance and engineering fortitude. The sheer volume of materiel involved in sustaining this aerial effort was immense. Production logs indicate that by the end of the war, 12,731 B-17s had been manufactured, each designed with the inherent strength that allowed such improbable